Hi there, my name is Emma Vasquez.
All right.
Can you guys hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we put ourselves on mute?
Yeah, I would do that. Just because I can hear a lot of the background noise. My name is Emma Vasquez, and this is our gift-giving debate. The members in our group are Celine Castillo, Emma Vasquez, Jordan Martinez, Kanisha Anderson, and Randy McClelland. The topic of gift giving within the field of ABA has both pros and cons, which will be discussed throughout this debate. Gift giving has the potential to cause bribery or lead to a potential hazardous dual relationship. ABA is oftentimes conducted within the client's home and can lead the therapist to become more like a family member and less as a professional. It is important for the distinct boundary to be placed when the therapist is working within the home. However, there are positive benefits to gift giving, which will also be highlighted. Cultural sensitivity and the expression of gratitude are areas that should not be overlooked when it comes to gift giving. Some parents show their gratitude and happiness through the giving of gifts, and it may be rude or insensitive to deny them this display of gratitude. Celine Castillo, Randy McClelland, Kanisha Anderson, and Jordan Martinez are here to present their evidence for what they support. For the sake of this debate, the pro side will be in the support of the BACB compliance code as it stands, while the con side is against the current compliance code. So we will first go to Celine, I guess, and then how do I share that?
Okay. So are we not sharing our screens? Okay. It's important to start this argument with a clear definition of what a dual relationship is. Dual relationship is defined as a situation where multiple roles exist between a therapist or other mental health practitioner and a client. Some common examples of dual relationships are attending a client's birthday party, going out to dinner with a client's family, accepting gifts, and a lot more. My argument discusses how accepting gifts can lead to dual relationships, and each topic within my argument explains how the act of accepting gifts has serious negative implications on the effectiveness, reliability, and validity of a board-certified behavior analyst's work in the applied behavior analysis field. BCBAs work in the client's home and thus need to make sure that they are abiding by ethical guidelines by not accepting bribes and remaining objective. When you accept gifts, you are at risk for multiple relationships with the client and the family. Multiple relationships can affect the integrity of the work that BCBAs do. Behavior analysts often work with clients and their caregivers in such an extended and intensive manner that multiple relationships are prone to arise and must be diligently guarded against. Even though BCBAs may work in the client's home, they are performing a service to the family and expect to be treated as a professional within the home. They are not there to socialize or form a personal relationship with the family. Hold on. Ooh, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Oh, I didn't add in. Oh, I did. Okay. So my first scenario says, you have been working in a client's home as a BCBA for 2 years. You have developed a very close relationship with the client's family. The client offers you 2 tickets to Disneyland because they know that it is you and your family's favorite place to vacation. What is wrong with this scenario? Because you've been working so closely with the family, they think that it's okay to offer you gifts. Working in the client's home puts this BCBA at an even higher risk to develop a dual relationship or multiple relationship. It is important that the family understands before they even offer that a gift is prohibited, according to the compliance code. If the BCBA accepts the gift, then they have entered into a dual relationship, which compromises the integrity of their work. It's important to remember that when you are in a client's home, that you are there as a professional, providing a medically necessary service. Therefore, you should refrain from disclosing too much personal information or anecdotes. There's a fine line between a benevolent professional and a sociable friend. The BACB explained in their newsletter why it's so important to protect against dual relationships. This newsletter said, a dual relationship reasonably might impair the behavior analyst's objectivity or otherwise interfere with the behavior analyst's ability to effectively perform his or her functions as a behavior analyst, or might harm or exploit the other party. We work with clients in a way that not only affects their academic lives, but also their personal lives. This means that we are initially closer to the family and directly affect how their everyday lives run. With this strong of an influence, it's easy for the family to depend and trust in us, so we need to make sure to keep our professional boundaries. If we chose to bend some of those boundaries, we could inadvertently lose some of the objectivity that a BCBA's job requires. Objectivity is important in this field because sometimes you will have to explain things to the family that they may not realize that they are doing that could be reinforcing maladaptive behaviors, or that you do not see as beneficial or ethical for the client that they are implementing. An example of this is seen in our next scenario. So scenario 2, as a BCBA, you have gotten to know a client's family well over the last few years. You have accepted small gifts from the family several times. The client's family has recently implemented a punishment procedure that you do not think is ethical. You have tried to talk to the parents, but they say that they are going to keep doing the procedure. You don't follow up with the family because of all they've done for you. What is wrong with this scenario? The biggest issue that I see with this scenario is that by accepting gifts, the BCBA's objectivity was affected. I would have thought that a BCBA truly believes that what a family is doing is unethical, would take the appropriate steps to correct the issue, which may even lead to termination of services. In this case, the BCBA initially explained why they disagreed with the family's punishment procedure, but they then gave up when the family decided not to change their methods. BCBAs need to be objective and adequately provide treatment to clients who need their help. Accepting gifts and establishing that dual relationship affected the BCBA's objectivity and the integrity of ABA as a practice. Although a gift-giving policy is a good start, it is equally important for organizations to prepare all staff members to handle the inevitable gift encounter. It is important for the professional to understand the intention of this behavior and respond in a way that continues to strengthen the professional relationship. The monetary value of a gift is often an indicator of whether personal professional boundaries have been crossed. However, the intention and the effect of the gift is of the greatest concern. Okay, scenario 3. You have been working with a family for 5 years. The client has made significant progress, but still requires some work in the social curriculum. You have been accepting gifts, both large and small, from the family for your entire professional relationship. Recently, the parents have been asking you to babysit because they can't trust anyone else. You tell them that you can't, but the parents are saying that they have done so much for you over the years, so it's only fair. What are the major problems here? So the major problem here is that by accepting gifts, you enter into a dual relationship. By entering into the dual relationship, you are at risk for clients' families bribing you. The chain of events was started by simply accepting small gifts, which likely led to larger gifts. I do not assume that this scenario is common, but it does make sense as to why the compliance code is so strict. The compliance code wants to protect both the client and the BCBA from entering into a dual relationship and blurring the lines between professional and familial. Ultimately, accepting gifts is a slippery slope, where the client may want something in return. The BACB wants to ensure that the professional relationship that the BCBAs build with the client's family does not turn into a personal relationship. Even if BCBAs were to put a cap on the gifts they received, they would then be responsible for guessing the retail of the gift, which sometimes may have more cultural value than monetary. This puts BCBAs in an even more awkward situation because they may deny some gifts yet accept others, or they may not know how much the gift truly costs until after they have already accepted it. It's extremely important to prepare all staff members on how to react when offered a gift from a client or their family. We need to explain the declaration of professional practices to the families before services. This declaration gives a script for the BCBAs, which states, although our relationship involves very personal interactions and discussions, I need you to realize that we have a professional relationship rather than a social one. According to my professional code of ethics, it is not appropriate for me to accept gifts or meals, and it is not appropriate for me to be involved with your personal activities such as birthday parties or family outings. The families need to understand before services start what is permitted so they are never put in an awkward situation. It's important that the distinction is made early on that we are not guests in the client's home, and they do not need to cater to us as such. In fact, to do our job more effectively, it would be best if families acted normally in the home with going about their daily routines. Altogether, the reason that the BACB has such a strict code of compliance is because BCBAs are at a very high risk for multiple relationships, and thus they need to be professionally and ethically guarded to protect the field of ABA and their own professional reputation. I'm done.
Is it me next?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do I just start going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name is Jordan Martinez. I'll be stating and proving the con side of this argument. Let me pull up my thing. So can you guys see, like, what do you guys see here? Like, because I can't tell what you're seeing from my screen.
I can see.
We can see all of it.
Yeah.
It's not really big though.
Okay. We're gonna get into it. So our stance on the con side. Oh no, I'm at the end. Okay. Is not that we should completely scratch the compliance code, rather that it needs to be modified because as it stands, especially Part D right here, where it says behavior analysts do not accept any gifts from or give any gifts to clients. It's restrictive in nature and it might do more harm than good. In addition, it doesn't completely protect from dual relationships. So socially and culturally, the implications of gift rejection are well understood. I think it's important to note that we teach kids how and why to give gifts, but then if they generalize it, our compliance code forces us to punish that behavior or risk being in violation of our ethics. Another interesting point is that certain cultures find it offensive if you reject a gift. For example, in Russian and Greek cultures, a lot of people will offer you gifts until you accept them. In Spain, it's very similar to America, where if the gift is seen as too extravagant in value, it can be considered a bribe or that there are ulterior motives. But there are a lot of places like China and Japan where the act of gift giving is more important than the gift itself. It's really important also to talk about that gift giving predates civilization. So kind of who are we to just decide all of a sudden that this isn't something that humans are allowed to do? It's a way to show gratitude and appreciation and altruism. It's not just a way to bribe people. Back to the origin of our species, we would give each other weird rocks to show that we were grateful for like help on a hunt, or Romans would give each other sticks that they found on the ground for good luck. Basically, the point is all gifts are not bribes. A lot of studies have been done. This Reamer 2013 study says that gifts are tokens of appreciation, nothing more and nothing less. And if you reject a gift, the client may actually feel hurt, wounded, humiliated, or guilty, which is not something we want in ABA. Next, we're going to move on to the restrictive nature of the compliance code. If you look at our compliance code in relation to other ethics codes that are out there, Ours is particularly strict and in a way extreme. This any gifts, or don't accept any gifts, don't give any gifts. In SAT prep, they actually tell you, I used to be an SAT tutor, and they tell you if that an answer has the word any in it to kind of steer clear, because it's probably wrong. Nothing in life is so absolute or all-inclusive. In legal writing, there's actually people who say not to use any and all because it just gets you into trouble. So something interesting, it's a legal document, our ethics code. Also the caliber of gifts. This means that we can't even accept handmade gifts. You know, I understand don't give me a vacation or a Ferrari, but like if a child gives me a handmade card or a drawing or even a glass of water, I'm supposed to reject that or risk being in violation of the code. Also, if you consider other ethics codes here, like the Florida Department of Education, you can see a strict difference in the language. Like the Florida Department of Education, you know, you don't accept gifts to gain personal advantage. You don't do things that might influence professional judgment. You don't obtain special advantages, you know, which protects the client, it protects the student, but it also accounts for all of the other intricacies involved. If you look at the social workers code of ethics, they have provisions related to gifts, but they don't specifically prohibit accepting gifts. And they also give you red flags to look out for just in case, like if there's any sense of quid pro quo, which is the sense that there's a favor, an exchange taking place, or if it's something out of the ordinary, like it's not a holiday or you know, a birthday or something like that, you know what I mean? Then of course there's red flags that you need to be aware of, because it's important that we set clear and appropriate boundaries. Finally, I messed that up a little bit. And then finally, even with all of this restrictive language and the way that our code is set up, dual relationships may still arise. The nature, oh my gosh, my bad guys, I clicked everywhere. The essence of our work makes it super easy for dual relationships to arise. This article by Madison really, really hits the nail on the head. Social work is a profession that provides itself on the use of the self, the person, and the process. And I know we're not exactly social work, but when you think about the fact that we are inserting ourselves into the daily lives of these children for 4 or 5 hours at a time sometimes, teaching them daily living skills and how to socially interact, you know, those lines get blurred a little bit. And the essence of our work, we have to pair with the child. We have to be the cookie. We have to make them want our attention. We sing, we dance, we play. All of that stuff is not exactly professional behavior. And then we go into your homes, we meet your family, we know your pets' names and what the food you cook smells like. You know, all of that will inevitably change the way that I interact with you compared to someone who I see for 5 minutes when you're picking up your child. Ultimately, what this comes down to is that the nature of our work requires us to interact with the child on multiple levels. How many times have you heard someone say, okay, it's time to work, or all right, you did it, like you earned it, it's time to play, like let's go to the playroom. So everything we do is going to alter our relationship on some level. And the ethical issue here is really absolutism versus relativism. You can see here, I kind of delineated what the difference is. And my main point is that in ABA, logically, we are all about single subject designs. We are all about the individual. We are all about catering everything to each client, depending on who they are and how they act and what their behaviors are. So it just doesn't make sense to have such an absolutist approach to our ethics code when the nature of our work is very relativist. And then also the function of behavior versus the function of a gift. Like, we are expected to determine scientifically the function of children's behaviors every day, not just children, but anyone. ABA, you can determine the function of a behavior. So if you think of gift giving as a behavior, you know, and we can be trusted to determine the function of a behavior and figure out how to address that, then why is gift giving any different? Why all of a sudden, if I accept a glass of water, a handmade drawing, is my objectivity completely compromised? So some solutions, we touched on it already. Look at the other codes of ethics, ways that you can, you know, document or report the gifts, some price points you can set out, or guidelines for, you know, red flags to look out for when gift giving comes into play. And then, you know, basically the client is of the utmost importance. They should be our number one consideration. That is written all over the compliance code. We have to, you know, we're trying to do no harm here. So this umbrella no gifts rule, we have to look at it. It's lazy and absolutist, and it came from a place of fear. If you look at the history of ABA. So when you consider the fact that today it doesn't protect fully from dual relationships and that it could do more harm than good socially, we're just trying to say that the compliance code needs to be amended, or as it currently stands, it's just not ethically and culturally sound, and that maybe a few adjustments would be good for ABA as a whole. Was my microphone on?
Yeah. Kanisha, you're next?
I'm next.
No, Randy. Randy's next. No, Kanisha is next, and then Randy.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kanisha Anderson, and I am against gift giving. As mentioned, there is a cultural aspect to take into consideration when deciding.
Wait. We have to be very careful there. You have to say you're for the compliance code.
Okay. I am for the compliance code, which is against gift giving. As mentioned, there is a cultural aspect to take into consideration when deciding whether accepting gifts is acceptable or not. To only accept gifts from different cultures in fear of offending them would be potentially seen as discrimination to cultures who don't hold the same value. For example, if a culture is for gift giving and that's how they show their appreciation, I cannot, as a BCBA, I cannot tell another family to not give me gifts because they don't have those same beliefs. That can lead to a lot of discrimination suits, which could potentially lead into ethical code of ethics standards. As we teach children the skill of sharing and treating others as equal, we need to practice it as well. To only accept gifts from certain people and deny those from others is not the model we should want to present to anyone. So although gift giving is a great sign of appreciation, one thing we can teach children is to give to their peers. Although they want to give us appreciation gifts and tell us thanks, we need to teach them that they can give to their peers instead to show their appreciation for their peers and their friends. In a situation as such, we have to be fair, and to be fair, not accepting any gift will be our best option. If a possible situation may arise where a family with cultural beliefs feel offended, there are polite ways to explain rejection. Before therapy even begins, there are policies and there are signed consents that should explain in detail what is expected of each family and what is expected from the BCBA. Within the informed consent, the BCBA has to lay out and explain what can be accepted and what is not accepted. And there should also be a section that mentions the generous gift giving. Handwritten gifts, handmade gifts, and inexpensive gifts can be seen as harmless gestures of gratitude. However, what may seem inexpensive to one person may hold a different value to another. Who's to say me as a BCBA would treat the same gift of the same value as someone else? The Code of Ethics was established because of previous bad judgment from professionals in this field. To prevent history from repeating itself, these codes have been essential to follow. Hold on, guys, I'm trying to find it. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Some brief history on the Sunland scandal, which took place in 1972. Residential center in Florida, horrendous acts under the guise of behavior modification. Dr. Ian Dorsey and numerous of abusive acts, beating, locked in isolation, humiliation, poorly trained staff told to emphasize natural consequences, devise own immediate response, do not threaten, follow through with every contingency, and it led to the Blue Ribbon Panel. The Blue Ribbon Panel was developed a statewide advocacy program to prevent this kind of abuse from happening again. Unannounced visits to check on facilities, collection information, and review of punishment, seclusion. Steps to ensure that this abuse does not happen again. Use of peer review, lead to better treatment, set into motion protective legislation, more oversight, development of code of ethics. And that is how the code of ethics came about. Of course, our number one rule is to do no harm. The behavior analyst's primary goal is to benefit the client. So as we mentioned, gift giving and the benefit of what we can receive, we should be teaching kids. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to end my screen share. Okay. As we mentioned, gift giving and having our clients' interest in first, we have to keep in mind that it's not about us, and we should not be looking to receive gifts or to, hold value gifts. We should be more so teaching them how to share with their friends, share with their family, things like that. Although they do get to know us on a personal level and they do begin to care about us, we need to be able to politely decline with them in mind. And my other PowerPoint is in the process. I didn't know how I wanted to do that one. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Okay, yeah. I'm done.
Okay, Randy.
Go back and touch some culture stat in regards to only certain cultures or ethnicities. It would be a case-by-case basis, which is how we develop programs in the first place, behavior plans, reinforcements, and almost everything else in ABA is a case-by-case basis. According to the author, social inclusion, professional codes, and gift giving in long-term mental health care, professional training stimulates care professionals to be attentive to the social nature of care relationships and therefore to gifts in order to have a good relationship to not turn sour, offend anybody by not taking or accepting their gifts. The entire section of the code is based on the mere possibility of the bribery. There is a newsletter through the BACB. It came out in May 2015. And the whole intention of the newsletter is the effects of gift giving. Gift exchanges were found during the course of an investigation. So it wasn't gift giving that was the problem in the first place. There were deeper rooted issues there, and they found that gift giving happened during that. But that was not the major problem. The ethical code, sorry guys. We are having the words any and all in the ethical code. Most other places have ethical codes, but they have some sort of monetary cap or a case-by-case basis. Gifts of major value may lead to conflict of interest, but there's no solid evidence for that. According to the American Medical Association, gifts from patients is almost entirely a case-by-case consideration. There are no definitive rules to determine when a physician should or shouldn't accept a gift. And their ethics policy is intended to prove guidance to clinicians, but it lacks a directive stance on the position. So like was stated before, not completely get rid of it, but have different standards to it. There should definitely be a portion in the ethical code about this, but it is far too strict. The 1.06 stating multiple relationships and conflicts of interest. Behavior analysts do not accept any gifts from or give any gifts to clients because this constitutes the multiple relationship. There is no fixed value for physicians to determine if a gift is appropriate or not. And we are not stating that there should be no ethical code for this, but even even as low as $5 or $10 would make it allowed for behavior analysts to accept handmade gifts or even cards. Ultimately, gifts of extreme value are more likely to influence the relationship. Small tokens of appreciation shouldn't be so strictly prohibited. There are other aspects that may add to crossing the professional boundary, not just gift giving. Being in the client's home and seeing and meeting their family that may be there can just do it. Even accept a handmade thank you card, and by not accepting that card, especially from a child that we work with, what are we modeling as adults? We're the ones who teach them that this is how we act and this is how we're polite. Although the BACB said, we just believe extreme or excessive.
I liked it. I thought it sounded good.
Yeah.
Did anybody time it?
Is it being recorded right now?
Yeah, it's recording right now, so we should be able to see it.
Yeah,
I started timing it after the intro, and it's at like 32 minutes.
Oh, so we should be
But
perfect.
that was after Emma read the. It was after she read the introduction to the conclusion, and that's.
Yeah, then we should be good.
Yeah.
What is the time?
Honestly, I
35 to 40, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think when we actually do the final take and everybody has their visuals and explaining all of the visuals, it's gonna hit 40, at least 42.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot.
What was the time supposed to be though?
40?
35 to 40.
35 to 40?
Oh,
I
okay.
believe.
Yeah, we'll definitely have enough time. But then is that just how it ends, or is there a conclusion too?
I'll do the conclusion.
And then you
Yeah,
have
there
the
was a conclusion.
Oh, okay.
Can we
I
do
just
a
missed it.
conclusion and then like a page of references?
Yeah, or maybe as she's saying the conclusion, she could pop up the screen share the reference page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the references.
It's just the references from the
Outline.
outline.
Yeah. I think it sounded good, guys.
Yeah.
Ooh, that had me
The
sure.
Hemi
I think we just have to look up and see if there was any rules in there about like, do we have to show our faces, or you know what I mean? Like, I want to say there was something in there because I remember thinking that, but I could just be crazy.
I remember.
Um,
The reading that it can't be directly from our case kit.
it can't what?
It can't be obvious that we're like reading word for word from our page.
Oh, so then we should have to show our faces, probably, right?
Probably.
Okay, and then the only thing that's weird about that is it's hard to like share and unshare, share and share and unshare. You know what I mean? Like that's annoying.
But can you like edit the video in a way so it can be like smoother hearing and transition?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Is it possible if we can like edit the video so it can be like smoother hearing and transition?
I don't know. Do you know how to edit it?
No,
I don't know how to edit it. I mean, I think we could, but I don't know how to do it.
technology. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the skills for that. But I don't think that that'll be too big of an issue. We can probably work it out. When do you
You
guys?
should just like talk during that time, during like the transitions. Just try to like fill it when you're trying to get everything up.
And I think we hit all of the points like on the rubric. When do you guys want to record it? When do you actually want to record it?
I'll be gone next Thursday through
So-
Easter Monday. But I don't know if you guys want to do it before that, or maybe like we could do it the 3rd, 4th, or 5th of April.
Okay. Yeah, we can just do that Thursday,
What
right?
does it do?
What?
I forget the actual due date. Is it the 1st or 2nd week of April?
I don't know. We have to look at that.
I think it's April 8th.
Yeah, I think so too.
We could do it the 5th then.
What day's the 5th? Is that a
2 weeks
Thursday?
from today.
The
Oh.
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that
okay
works for
with
me.
that.
Good. So just get comfortable
Yeah.
with when you're gonna whatever you're saying while you're transitioning. Get really good at saying that, and then I think we could knock it out in probably one run through.
Yeah. Maybe just like try and practice like recording yourself and your part.
So when 2 weeks comes, we're like totally cold reading it.
Yeah.
And then I think because even that, like I wrote these note cards like 2 or 3 weeks ago and just picked them up just now. And I think the run through went fairly smoothly, having never done it before.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Agreed.
I think we can knock it out like pretty quick, one shot next time.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
You,
Bye.
bye.